Now it's time to round off our look at the season with a review of the County Championship.
Well, I remember at the end of last year, after moving to Leicester, looking at the fixtures and seeing that it was Leicester versus Surrey for the last game of the year, and I thought, I wonder, could it really be?
The 1998 County Championship ended with a dramatic climax at the Oval, but it was Yorkshire who'd been fastest out of the traps back in April, with Darren Gough attempting to prove his match fitness after the winter layoff, and 21-year-old Matthew Wood looking to cement his place alongside captain David Bias in the batting lineup. Yorkshire were just too strong for Somerset. Yorkshire looked genuine title contenders. 1998 wasn't a vintage year for Worcestershire, but it will always remain in the memory of Graham Hick, who completed the remarkable feat of 100 first-class centuries at the relatively tender age of 33. Hick may continue to be one of the most argued about players at Test level, but he's now entered the ranks of the cricketing immortals, one of just 22 batsmen in the history of cricket to achieve the milestone. On to Glamorgan against Surrey at Swansea, and as Adam Hollyoake enjoyed one of his few productive days of the year with the ball, the match epitomised a season in which the champions never recaptured their high-octane mix of 97. Although Matthew Maynard offered resistance, Martin Bicknell was in great form all year and clearly enjoyed the conditions, before Michael Powell fell to a brilliant catch by Alex Tudor, and then Saqlain Mushtaq wrapped things up by deceiving Parkin with his wrong-un. As Middlesex at Guildford and Sussex at the Oval both found to their cost, the Surrey challenge was based on their powerful batting lineup, with Ali Brown amassing over 1,000 runs, backed up by the Saqlain and Salisbury spin combo. Despite losing many players to test calls, it clearly worked, and they led the table for most of the season. Meanwhile, Gloucestershire were exerting constant pressure, with the seemingly ageless Courtney Walsh celebrating his benefit year with over 100 championship wickets. His 12 wickets in the match against Warwickshire, as against the 11 of the fast-improving Ed Giddings, proved decisive, alongside a century in the second innings from captain Mark Elaine. Kent were the next lambs to the slaughter at Bristol, as they found their pre-season favouritism for almost every competition too great a burden, and subsided limply to mid-table mediocrity. Lords in September provided another Gloucestershire win, as Martin Bull's 67 proved comfortably the highest score of the match, and Mike Smith and Walsh proving too good for the home team. It also saw the last home appearance of a very distinguished career. Mike Gatting bowed out after 25 years and more than 36,000 runs. The ovation he received will be echoed across the country, a wholehearted cricketer whose chirpy enthusiasm seemed undimmed to the last. Middlesex's early promise, with Justin Langer scoring prodigiously, evaporated as the season unfolded, and it was Lancashire who emerged as genuine contenders. John Crawley knocked continuously on the selector's door with 1,600 championship runs at 72, including 100 in each innings against Glamorgan at Colwyn Bay. Another Crawley masterclass against Yorkshire at Headingley resulted in the Roses match victory, made even sweeter by the fact that it kept Lancashire firmly in contention. Crawley not only scored 180 out of 484, but crucially ensured a scoring rate of more than 4 and over. This meant Lancashire still had time to force a win in the second innings via the two Garys, Yates and Keady, even though Yorkshire themselves scored over 450 before declaring first-time round. Warren Hegg set things up with 85, and then left-armer Keady and off-spinner Yates went to work. Into September, and a double century by Matthew Wood set up the rout of Warwickshire, as Yorkshire maintained an outside chance of the title by winning their last two games with comprehensive ease. For Lancashire, when Wasim Akram won the toss in their last game against Hampshire at Old Trafford and decided to bat, he knew the championship was theirs, provided that they won and Leicestershire didn't, as long as they took maximum points. But Hampshire hadn't been reading the script all season, and Nixon McLean, Alex Morris, Kevin James and Dimitri Mascarenhas weren't about to start now. With the help of Will Kendall's fine slip-catching, slowly but surely they worked their way through Lancashire's batting for a meagre 185, their lowest score of the season and far too few for championship aspirants. Displeased, the home side sought revenge, and Wazim Akram, Peter Martin and Ian Austin were in no mood to take no for an answer. Having secured a first innings lead of 13, they then went for the jugular, with John Crawley leading a devastating assault. Hampshire were handicapped by injuries to Morris and McLean, but this was a masterful exhibition of batting. Crawley reached his 100 off just 138 balls, his 7th in the championship this season, and then went on to complete a double century in just 98 more deliveries. Superb stuff. But sadly only 20 points and only good enough to claim the runners-up position. So it was to a Leicestershire side that all eyes turned, and to a side that had been in contention for every competition, but had almost taken the lead in the championship by stealth. A green top at Bristol in May is no place for the faint-hearted, with Courtney Walsh around, but it was here that things got underway, as Ben Smith and Vince Wells both scored decisive hundreds to set up victory. Then the seamers gleefully polished things off. But everything changed in one day that seemed to be heading for frustration.
July the 17th. The date was July the 17th. It's ever engraved on the dressing room door.
We always looked like beating Northampton, and suddenly we got stuck to getting them out, and it only left us 20 overs to get 200. The lads went out there. Vince Wells smashed it. He got 50 in about 4 overs, Vince.
Fortunately, I mean, Vinnie Wells, who's been fantastic with bat and ball all year, started off and I think got 50 in 20 odd balls, 20 or 30 balls.
And then Chris went out and got 18 in 30, 40 odd balls.
It really did set us off on the championship, thinking, well, you know, we can achieve anything.
The team were on a roll big time, and Jimmy Ormond and Vince Wells tore through the Somerset batting as they became the next to suffer, with not even a washout against Lancashire able to quench the team's infectious exuberance. Somerset collapsed to a paltry 74 all-out of just 28 overs, with Ormond finishing with 6 for 33. Unplayable? Darren Maddy didn't think so, even with Andy Caddick in inspired form, and his 100 provided the basis for a lead of nearly 200. After that, it was just a case of trying to finish things off, which Ormond, Wells and David Milnes accomplished with some relish. Middlesex were next. Mark Ramprakash and Paul Weeks both made hundreds for the visitors, but Leicester never give up, and even though Darren Maddy went cheaply, Wells and Ian Sutcliffe took up the challenge. Wells went for 67, and then Sutcliffe went on to make 167 and set up a lead of 145. Some pressure was exerted, some wickets fell, and suddenly Leicester need only 100 to secure another comfortable victory. But the run-up to the next match against Nottinghamshire at Worksop was anything but smooth.
The Worksop too.
Acting captain Chris Lewis and David Milnes were both dropped for being late for training. Only Leicester could ride the loss of 2 major bowlers with such apparent ease. Wells and Mullally ripped through Nottinghamshire for just 61. Then stand-in captain Phil Simmons and Ben Smith set about building an impregnable total from which Notts had no way back. Simmons' 194 was a welcome return to form, while Smith's 159 was further confirmation of his development.
I found that responsibility, I tend to make runs a lot when I'm captain, but it just happened that that game was a game that I came off and that things went well. And that's the first game I started to play normally and started to hit the ball as I usually do.
And so to Edgbaston, and early on the second morning, things were looking distinctly precarious.
You know, it had its scary moments. We were 15 for 4. We had a bit of a rally later on, and David Milnes and Matthew Brimson got a partnership on.
David Milnes coming in at number 9 and getting 99, you know, so we could actually post a good score.
Then we came out and we bowled, and Chris took us through the first inning. Millsy come and clean up, and second inning, chasing 400. It's always going to be hard on them. I think Hemp batted well, but at the same time we were happy that we know it's a matter of time before we got them out.
Mid-September now, back to Grace Road and the visit of Essex.
But Vince played fantastically well. I think he scored 171, you know, and most other people perhaps looked to be in a little bit of trouble. And when we actually went out to bowl, the fielders were fantastic. People taking catches, people diving around, the bowlers coming in and putting it in the right place.
Alan Mullally had given Leicester an excellent chance with bowling of real quality, aided by the medium pace of Vince Wells.
We have a thing that every time we give him the ball, first over, if he doesn't get a wicket, we take him off, you know, because he usually gets a wicket in the first over.
It went all to plan, you know. They nicked it, we caught it, they missed it, we hit the wickets. And very soon on in the game, unless the weather intervened, as long as we kept going, it was obvious that we were going to be the victors.
We steamrolled them. I thought we played professional cricket there. We identified that game as a crucial one. A team towards the bottom and we were towards the top. You know, you've still got to be on your game.
The Oval. Phil Simmons won the toss and chose to bat. In no time at all, Leicester were 100 for 4.
Smashed away through the covers for 4, over the covers for 4, and the run fest continues.
We were always desperate for a partnership. It was always exciting stuff. I kept thinking, do they realise it's a 4-day game? Because we were going guns blazing, 100 not in, I don't know, 15 overs for 4 wickets. But then fortunately, Ben Smith and Aftab played the innings of their careers. And they just got dug in, still playing positively though, but never giving a chance.
Amin can't get there. It's a lovely shot, straight down the ground.
Full marks to Ben and Aftab. I thought that was one of the best partnerships I've ever seen in county cricket, the whole time I've ever played it. Circumstance-wise, character-wise and ability-wise.
As the score mounted inexorably, Surrey began to wilt for the lack of oxygen of success, and Smith and Habib looked ever more immovable.
And he does it with a smite over mid-wicket. And there's a mighty grin on the face, and so there ought to be. A super performance from Ben Smith.
And that really killed Surrey, because eventually they never looked like getting a wicket. And you could see their heads getting down, you know, lower and lower.
This is 100. He'll come back for 2. And it's been a terrific knock by Aftab Habib. This partnership with Ben Smith is worth 219. And the Leicestershire team are all out on the balcony, clapping a marvellous innings.
And then once they were out, then Nicol came in and got another 100, and Lewis got 60 odd. So suddenly they're out of the game completely.
If you bat for a day and 3/4, they have to bat for at least a day and a half in order to make close to 400 against us. So that's the game finished, and a drawn game means we've won.
Paul Nixon 101 not out, Chris Lewis 54 not out, and Leicestershire have declared 585 for 6.
Alan Mullally has been a fantastic bowler all year. David Milnes, when he's played, has taken wickets and scored runs, and he's done the job. But to come out in just the space of a few overs and really decide the fate of the championship was perhaps more than, as a team, we'd probably hoped.
To go out there and have them 4 for 8 or whatever it was and 3 for none, we couldn't have had a better start.
Now, what's happening? Yeah, got him! Top-class bowling.
The way they came in, bounding in, it was Mills and Mullally at their best, wasn't it?
Oh, now, Fin Wan, got him!
David Mills starts a new over, big appeal, and that's out!
I managed to nip one back to Alex, and that was perhaps the prize wicket.
Oh, he's bowled him!
And then very soon after that, Vinnie Wells getting an LBW decision. And, I mean, it all happened then, you know.
Oh, big appeal, that's out! And I think that's the championship!
The vital 7th wicket and 3rd bowling point that meant the championship returned to Grace Road after an absence of just 1 year, but no one was interested. They made Surrey follow on, and when Rupesh Amin was stumped off Matthew Brimson late that evening, they'd finished the job to seal the total victory they wanted.
Leicestershire have beaten Surrey comprehensively by an innings and 211 runs.
The feelings are there. You feel like I still haven't come down from that cloud yet.
And we came through in the end, and we were delighted that we lifted the championship, obviously, but I think we were more delighted that, you know, Phil
did lift the trophy, and hopefully he's going to be back next year and we can do it again.
Well, I for one was delighted to see one of my former counties succeeding again to take the championship title for the third time in their history.